Just wanted to show my viewers a little bit about what I'm doing out here. I got 4 of those stars from Lowe's, and I attached them on the front side, and then I put 2 shovels representing the crossbars that the military basically always uses, either in swords or in guns or in shovels or whatever. My little blue bellies, my frogs, they're doing all right, I guess. I put up a new deal today pertaining to Happy Harvest. And I've got some more things that I'm going to put out pertaining to harvest. Sorry about the flag, American flag, being all wrapped around the pole. I guess I should have taken that and unraveled it, but just a spur of a moment. Anyways, I'm starting to do this. I've done planted my tree here, and this grass right here, whatever you call that grass right there, but anyways, I'm plating that down real good with that black mesh, the good mesh, the fiberglass mesh, and then I'm going to put the red rock in there. I put 4 stars on this side, which these stars are a little different than the 4 other stars. And I went ahead and trimmed both of the limbs off of this tree. That way they won't be so low lying whenever it does finally take hold and start growing. It's grown quite a bit this year. It's probably grown, I'm gonna say 4 feet this year. That sibling come up last year out of nowhere, and of all places for it to come up was right in the middle of that, basically right in the middle of that heart right there, offset just a little bit from it. I'm gonna start working on this tomorrow towards getting all the grass and the weeds out of it and straightening it up. And I'm going to start dyeing my rock tomorrow. I've got my lights all set up of what I'm going to display underneath the rock. I'm going to dye the rock purple or blue, giving it the impression of a purple heart. And then I got blue lights that I'm going to put up underneath the rock to be able to help reflect it. That way you can see it better. Anyways, the reason why that I want to come out here and show you this, not just so much of me showing you what I've gotten achieved, and of course, with it being so hot this summer, it basically put a halt on me coming out here, and it hasn't been just within the past 2 or 3 days that I've been able to come out here and do anything. But what this is a memorial site, a Purple Heart memorial site, representing not only our military, but all the women and men and those who have endlessly been shot, especially mass shootings here in America, that all these things, as far as I'm concerned, could have got prevented. So, in essence, what a memorial site does, it represents, it's symbolic of the dead. So I want to come in here now, because this was on TV, and I wanted to show you something pertaining to a political figure that has recently been a thorn in President Putin's side. In regards towards them burying this guy and where they buried him at and how private. I didn't do this. Hang on a second. Hang on 1 second. Boom, boom, right there. And where they buried him, in the way that they buried him, because, well, I'll let you listen to what the commentator has to say.
To the cemetery where Prigozhin has actually been buried. You can see, look at all the security around. These are people from Russia's National Guard, essentially. And if you come over here, you know, there's more police back there. If you come over here, you've got, you know, armed members of the Interior Ministry guarding the entrance to the cemetery. Just here. Fast można widzieć, you know, miejsce, gdzie Prigozhin leży. Is it possible to go and see the place where Prigozhin laid down? Can I go?
No.
No?
Closed.
Closed. Почему? Why? Okay, but we can't go. We can't go. All right. Okay, but we can look. Спасибо. Thank you. They're down there. Look, another soldier. And all along here, look, there are people standing at guard at sort of 5-meter intervals, all the way up there, look, right the way through, across the boundary, the perimeter of the cemetery. And this is what they don't want us to see. Shielded first by a complex deception, and now by a military cordon, designed to keep the public away. But it's unbelievable, isn't it, the security that they put in place here. But come over here because you can see why. If you just look through the branches here, you've got a pretty good view of Yevgeny Prigozhin's gravesite. You can see there's some flowers there, a Russian flag, there's a very simple wooden cross as well. But you know, because of this security presence, this is as close as we're going to get.
And Matthew Chance joins us now from St. Petersburg. Matthew, what's the significance of this funeral being hidden?
I think it's pretty significant. I mean, look, first of all, it was a massive covert operation. It involved security services from all different sort of branches, putting up metal detectors, trying to distract people, and to make sure that this did not become a rallying point for supporters of Prigozhin and his very outspoken views, for instance, about the conduct of war in Ukraine. I think it also speaks to the Kremlin's insecurity about the blame that's being levelled. And of course, they've said it's absolute lies, these allegations that it was involved in the plane crash last Wednesday that killed Prigozhin and 9 other people. But despite those denials, many Russians simply don't believe it. They think there was some involvement of the state, and some are very angry about that, and that's something that concerns the Kremlin, John.
And don't think it's strange, because other famous people have requested in their death that their body be hidden. Great kings and queens have made this request because they knew that there was going to be people, instead of memorializing them in the proper way, they would actually use them as some sort of a cornerstone or some sort of a derivative of where that they was wanting to go. And in some incidences, kind of like Nostradamus, his body was hidden, pertaining to where he was buried, and he actually predicted that if anybody did find his body, that at that time it was a common practice, because of superstitiousness, of taking wine and pouring in the skull, and if you drink the wine from the skull, that you would be drinking the knowledge or the wisdom of the individual that had that type of wisdom and knowledge, just to show you how foolish people are. And sure enough, somebody had dug up his grave, found his grave, and according to the story, the individual, the two individuals that dug the grave up, and the one that had already poured wine into the skull was turning it up, fixing to start drinking from the skull. And just as Nostradamus had predicted that the individual that done that would die, and suddenly, all of a sudden, out of mysterious nowhere, a bullet come out of nowhere that hit this guy and killed him dead in his tracks before he ever got the first drink into his body. I say all of that to say that whenever my brother died, after us discussing what was going on here in the neighborhood, and I don't want the community in general to think that I am isolating everybody in a hole just because of a few individuals that done us the way that they done us out here. Because I know there's some good people that live in this community. They're not all bad. They're not all savagery, even though whenever I was growing up, the type of living out here was a very savagery type living. And I'm just going to use this as an excuse before I elaborate very much further on my brother's death, of me cremating his body. I remember I was on a school bus, and Mr. Hazelwood was the one that was running the route at the time. I was probably about 11, maybe 12. This was a couple years, 2 or 3 years before my brother had gotten killed up here in Cydonia in 1976 on a motorcycle wreck, running into a 806 International tractor. And I was doing something on the back of the bus that I wasn't supposed to have been doing, which was aggravating the Coble girls, the Coble gals at the time that was right up the road here. Some of Mr. Coble's family, he had 2 or 3 girls, and I was being mischievous, and I don't know for sure what I was doing, but I know that he had already done told me once to stop it, and I didn't stop it, and he stopped the bus and walked to the back of the bus and slugged me and hit me right in the jaw, and basically dislocated my jaw to the point that I walked around for about 2 or 3 months with my jaw popping and snapping. But I never did reveal that to nobody, especially you don't take something like that home, or at the time I didn't take something like that home and reveal it to my parents, because at the time, the way that it was around here, if you got disciplined by somebody else's parent and you brought that event home, odds are you was probably going to get a second whipping because of you getting out of line towards having to be disciplined in the first whipping. But just to show you how brutal that things was around here during the time that my brother did die, in which I was criticized by my cousin Jim Boy by not displaying his body openly before the public. And I told him, I said, Jim Boy, we'd already done discussed this, and David's feelings was very, very deep in the animosity that he had towards his peers out here, of those that he thought was his friends, but turned on him just because his brother come back to live on the same property of his inheritance that he did. And the fact of the matter is, David wanted to be cremated. But just to give you an illustration of how severe everything was going on whenever my brother did die, this was like maybe 7 days before I got arrested. I went down to his headstone. Of course, I had to do all this. I had to, David didn't have no will. He didn't have no legal stuff done whatsoever. Whenever people die, they don't expect to die. And I dug a hole about 4 foot deep and took his ashes And before I put his ashes in the hole, I had 2 50-pound bags of concrete, and I started pouring concrete, and then I put his ashes in the concrete, and then I filled the rest of the hole full of concrete up until about maybe 6 or 12 inches, and then I left that filled that up with dirt. And you might be saying, why in the world would you have wanted to do that, Jewbee? For the very same reason why these people are basically protecting or preventing people from getting close to that grave. You got people in the world that are nuts. And I realized that during the commotion of all this stuff that was going on in my life, especially whenever I had people after my brother's death screaming and hollering and coming out here accusing me of my own brother's death, even though it was them, the ones that was coming to this property that was aggravating us the way that they was, targeting us, hunting us down like a bunch of animals, basically. And I didn't want nobody to dig up my brother's remains. That way they could have passed it around and had bragging rights about it. Oh, this is Jewbee's brother's ashes. We got something from Jewbee. We stole something from Jewbee. We took something from Jewbee. We disrespected Jewbee. That's what this whole concept was from day one. From basically the time, not necessarily since 1983, since I've started telling people about a miraculous miracle that took place in my life pertaining to 2 hands that miraculously come out of nowhere that grabbed both of my wrists before an automobile come crashing down on top of me that should have crushed me or cut me in half. But whenever my mother come back here, my mother and father, she was just raised up in an area 6 or 7 miles away in a little town called Kenton, Tennessee. And she always got her hair done just right up the road here, less than a quarter of a mile, with John Lean Land. And her not realizing what she was doing, let the cat out of the bag pertaining to the phenomenon or the supernatural event that had happened to her up in Antioch, Illinois, the farmhouse that Al Capone used to reside in, that had a basement, 2 big silos, a big barn, and a milk barn. And beyond that point, people started chatting. People started talking. People started creating their own narrative. This is where the stereotyping set in. And we have seen where this has occurred again and again and again in other people's lives, regardless whether it was somebody as notorious as Jesus or just somebody that had a miraculous miracle happen in their life. There was a movie not too long ago, I don't forget the name of it, where this guy had seen this vision. I think it was a Mary on the building, and everybody, the community, started coming to that building and thinking that they was going to get healed because of the building. And I could take you to a place out in New Mexico called the Enchanted Circle, where basically somebody like Mother Mary, it wasn't Mother Mary, but somebody like Mother Mary had had some sort of a supernatural phenomenon experience. And to this day, those people actually market what had occurred there, because I guess it must be a famous place, and they sell little bitty portions of dirt for X amount of dollars, because it makes people think that they've gotten something holy or something that they can relate to or something that they can connect to. And that's the very thing that I didn't want to happen to my brother. And I kind of feel like that in a way they may be doing this to this individual, but in another way there's a deeper factor involved in it, because of his rhetoric that he had against President Putin, and basically the seeds that he had planted, that I personally believe, because they have made such of a big deal out of it, on a state level, on a national level, that instead of them dampening the resistance movement, they've actually poured gasoline on top of it because of the way that they went about doing this. Because basically, there's going to be people that's going to not necessarily idolize this guy, but there'll be people that will look at him towards him being a martyr, the same way that they look upon people like Martin Luther King towards him being a martyr, because he died for a certain particular cause, a certain particular reason. Jesus was a martyr. There's been other people that has died standing up for good, sound, strong reasons. Anastasia, outside of St. Augustine, less than 2 miles away on a little island. They memorialized her, honoring her because she had basically died for standing up for Christ and was beheaded during the time of her execution. So to see stuff like this is really not uncommon in one way, but in another way it really is, because you got to realize all the factors surrounding that individual's life, and now all the factors that's going to be surrounding that individual's death. And it's really bad because some people actually has to be buried in sarcophaguses just to keep others from digging up their graves. That was probably one reason why a lot of the pharaohs was buried underneath some of those pyramids, to make sure that nobody dug up their bodies and done something with it.
All right, Matthew Chance in St. Petersburg. Matthew, thank you very much. And we do have another funeral to mark tonight in the region, this one in Ukraine, for a well-known, perhaps the most well-known Ukrainian pilot, sort of the face of the Ukrainian Air Force, known by his call sign Juice. He was laid to rest in Kyiv today, 4 days after he and 2 others died during a mid-air collision on a combat mission. His real name is Andrei Pilshikov. He was part of a unit known as Ghost of Kyiv that defended the area around the capital. According to officials, he, quote, helped Ukraine survive the first terrible days of the invasion. In the early days of the invasion, right after Russia invaded, he was on 360 and he was talking to Anderson in full helmet and gear to hide his identity and only going by the call sign, his call sign, which is Juice. Listen to what he said.
So our people, and including me, we are ready to fight Russians, and we are ready to defend our country, to defend our people in absolutely any ways.
Now, he also explained how he got his call sign, Juice. He trained with the California Air National Guard, and when they would all go to bars after training, he wouldn't order alcohol, he would order juice, hence the nickname. May his memory be a blessing. When we come back, we're going to have much more from here, from the Florida Gulf Coast, from the Big Bend area, which is expected to bear the brunt of Hurricane Idalia in just a few hours. Storm surge of 10 to 15 feet. Why officials are so nervous in giving such stern warnings ahead.
When you're...
I have lowered the flag because of what went on in Florida, and plus we have lost some servicemen, a helicopter accident. Just recently we've lost some military men, and I don't know, it may have had some women on it too, but I felt like that it was justifiable in lowering the flag because of so much rhetoric going on today, and plus with a hate crime happening in open broad daylight per se. And whenever I say open broad daylight, what I'm talking about is basically an individual that did not try to
And this is CNN.
He didn't try to cover up. He wasn't trying to hide it or be discreet about his feelings about what he thought about towards going in and basically killing people because they wasn't of the same race or the same color as he was. Anti-Semitism has been on a uptick for several years, and I didn't realize how bad that the animosity was against the true Christianity family, those that follow after the Lord Jesus Christ, until I come back here in 2014. And I guess the reason why that I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it was because from 2005 up until 2014, I was basically living on the road, being a storm chaser, going from an event to an event to another event, all over the countryside, basically chasing the money, and plus it would give me an opportunity to witness and to help people in doing humanitarian work, and usually that's where the money was flowing at, regardless whether it was a major tornado destruction or a hailstorm or an ice storm or a hurricane or whatever, a flood or whatever. And I done that from 2005 up until 2014. So, you know, that was me generating not only enough cash flow, but also being able to help people in comforting them during some of the most worst times, emotional worst times of them going through what they was going through. And plus, it was making things easier towards not having to face what had been generated in my life out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma in 2009. I believe I got the year right. In regards towards them doing what they've done to me, because all that rhetoric was now going from the government web to the internet web, to the point that it was basically haunting me in certain areas, regardless whether I was in Colorado, California, Phoenix, Arizona, or Knoxville, Tennessee, or wherever, even out in Atlanta, Georgia, that in certain areas it was really haunting me because all that junk was on the computer, and I knew that it was going to be more difficult for them to hit a moving target than it was if I just settled in somewhere. And of course, with me coming back home with the intentions of settling in, that's exactly what occurred. I was no longer a moving target. And that's whenever they decided to do a pile on using football scenario concept. Now, while I was going through different scenarios in my life towards being either evaluated or going to jail to be evaluated or whatever, you pick up on a great deal of information while you're in these jails. And one of the things that I come up on that I was not aware of is that a lot of these dope dealers that sells drugs, regardless whether it's fentanyl or whatever, they do basically the same thing. They'll come into a neighborhood or an area. They'll be very low key at first. They know who their connections are. Once they get established in that particular area or community, they go to work in it towards bringing in their supplies. And then, boom, bam, thank you, ma'am. Less than 2 or 3 months goes by, they move on down the road and find them another place to locate. I didn't know that your career criminals out there, that basically that's how a lot of them does what they do in staying on the radar, In the meantime, if they get away in this community, and they get away with this community, and they get away with this community, if they do that, for a certain length of time, let's say 5 years, they've basically got enough money set back to retire on that now they can leave America and go live basically anywhere they want to live and never have to worry about making another dime. Also run upon some people out in California that was heavy, hard-hitting drug dealers. Some of them had $1 million, $2 million homes, Bentleys and everything else. Like I said, whenever you're going through the circuit, the jail circuit, you run upon all kinds of people doing all kinds of different things. And I guess the strangest one that I come upon, other than somebody that followed the Grateful Dead, no matter where the band was playing at, the Grateful Dead, he was one of them Grateful Dead fans that played the Grateful Dead circuit that was in jail. But this one guy from Miami, Florida, by looking at him, you'd have thought that he was a deacon in a church by his haircut and everything. But come to find out, he'd violated his probation. I don't know exactly what the charges was, but he was basically a loan shark that could work the market in the stock market, and basically was a multi-millionaire in Miami. And the reason why I know this, because I got to talking to him, and every time commissary would come, he'd order everybody whatever that they wanted in commissary and pay for it, because he had that kind of money. And of course, whenever you're doing that in jail, you're going to become everybody's buddy. They're going to take care of you. And it didn't matter what he done or what he said. He was basically the boss in that particular pod. And you can understand why. Because he was basically paying for his friendship. But I couldn't believe in how that he would show me whenever all them lines was coming up, whenever you sit there and watching the stocks go up and down and all this other stuff, he could tell you just exactly what was going to happen, when it was going to happen, before it ever happened. He had played the market enough that he had figured out what was going to do what just by the way, kind of like the roll of the dice. And from what I understand, this guy actually owned some high rises and private airplanes and everything else. He was a very, 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 very wealthy man that was going through the circuit that I bumped into. So there's all kinds of people that does all kinds of things, that tries to survive in all kinds of different ways. And some of the people, kind of like my brother, was a victim of circumstances, because the community, those that was doing what they was doing out here, did not have no right in bringing that type of peer pressure up onto my brother just because his brother had come back to his family estate. And they, just to show you how cold and how callous that they was in trying to flip it after my brother had died, in trying to promote me as me being the one that brought on his death. Now, that's mixed up. That's upside down. Whenever ever incident that happened out here on our property. But yet now, it wasn't their fault. And they was the ones that was doing the attacking. Let's watch this pertaining to this hurricane. I put out some material. Of course, I just about put out material almost every day. Sometimes I don't. Here lately I've been slacking a little bit. But if I'm not mistaken, probably less than a week ago, I said something about hurricanes. If those that keep up with any of my material pertaining to my work. And sure enough, boom, bam, here we go again towards the very things that I talked about that's now occurring. Let's listen.
By live pictures from Indian Rocks Beach in Florida, well south of where I am. People checking out the waves and the wind and seeing how Hurricane Idalia is affecting things now. Never a good idea, by the way, to go that close to a water when a hurricane is bearing down. Needless to say, where I'm standing in Steenhatchee, along the Steenhatchee River, you will not be able to stand here a few hours from now. Where I am will be covered in water. If the forecasts are correct, the water would be well over where my head is right now. We've seen the effects of...
Now, why did he say that it's not a good idea to be that close to the water? Because whenever something that tremendous, something that humongous is out there boiling in the water, you don't never know whenever there's going to be a major wave that's going to come in that could basically topple the walls of anything and basically knock everybody off their feet and possibly drag them back into the ocean and drown them. In other words, it's unstable. And because it's unstable, you should stay away from the water's edge. But you got people down there, once more, that are so mixed up that instead of them taking things in a serious mode, they actually have hurricane parties. It's time to stop working. They treat it as a holiday. They start drinking. They get all smoked up. It's a time for celebration. I'm telling you, there's a certain group of people that does this down in Florida, because I lived in Florida 3 or 4 different times, and I know what they do and how they do it. Now, not everybody does that, but I'm telling you that there is a certain group of people in Florida. It don't matter if it's southern Florida or northern Florida. It don't matter if it's going to come in on the east coast or the west coast, that whenever they talk about a hurricane, you got a certain amount of people that goes through the episode of basically like a holiday. Hey, it's time to start drinking. Let's have a hurricane party.
Florida last year, Hurricane Ian, the storm surge devastated Fort Myers Beach and Punta Gorda. Not too far from there is Clearwater Beach, which is where Gloria Pasmino is tonight. Gloria, what are you seeing?
Well, John, and I was speaking to people who were walking along the beach just about 2 hours ago as the sun was coming down. They were walking, taking in the scene, taking in the waves that were coming in, and they told me that they were riding out the storm right here in Clearwater Beach, even though this is a mandatory evacuation zone. They said they live about 5 miles inland, and that was giving them a little bit of comfort about what might happen in the next several hours. Now, you talked about the storm surge. You are about 200 miles north of where we are. We are to your south right now. So the storm is moving in your direction. And here we are starting to feel it's raining steadily now. The wind is starting to increase, but we are expecting conditions to deteriorate here significantly over the next several hours. Now, we have spoken to residents who told us that they were staying put and riding out the storm, while others, as we understand, have actually heeded those warnings. This is an area where there are a lot of resorts and a lot of hotels, and people were told to evacuate as of 11 o'clock this morning. They've done so. For the most part, it is very desolate here, and that is exactly what officials want. As that storm surge comes in, it could be catastrophic, as you said. 4 to 7 feet of water forecast for this area here. That could do a lot of damage. John?
Yeah, I mean, 7 feet. When you're talking about the 10 to 15 feet where I am, it doesn't sound like much, but 7 feet could be absolutely devastating, which is why the people do need to heed those warnings. I like the fact that the people say they live 5 miles inland, but they weren't inland. They were walking on the beach and checking out the waves. Gloria Pasmino, great to have you on. Thank you very much. Well, much more from Steenhatchee. The storm bearing down in just a moment.
You take under consideration, whenever something like that happens, it disrupts the economy in that area. You got people that's now having to shut down their businesses. You have people that's having to go get plywood and put on their windows. You got people that basically has to stop their employment. Their employer ain't going to continue to pay them if they're not working. So they're going to have to do whatever that they need to do, and then evacuate the area during the time that they're not going to be working. Plus, they're going to be paying for expenses pertaining to hotels and whatever, especially if you got a family. So whenever you talk about expense-wise, just the very thought of something like this occurring is going to cost in the community several $1 million, even if it just up and disappeared just within a matter of an hour or two right before it was supposed to hit, because it disrupts their economy. People has to quit working. They have to prepare. They got to load up their cars. They got to grab up their children. They got to take care of grandma that's on medication and can't hardly move. A lot of people don't want to leave their homes because they know how society is and how wicked society is, that if they was to leave and abandon their homes, the next thing you know, whenever they come back, thieves could go in and rob them and take everything, rob them blind, which would be just almost as bad as the hurricane itself hit. So it disrupts, it costs us money. That's the reason why that so many insurance companies is running out of Florida right now, is because of all the bad stuff that's happening in Florida. And of course, you got the same thing that's happening on the West Coast pertaining to California. I listened to a thing this morning. I didn't catch it. I didn't get to record it, but a guy was bringing up about the illegal immigrants going to New York City. And New York City is supposed to be like one of the highest tax rating areas in the country. That why would you want to send a bunch of illegal immigrants that basically couldn't speak no English and hadn't gotten settled into the country good? Why would you want to send them to the highest place in America, to New York City, and just dump them off on everybody and their brother? That's costing right now New York millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even billions. I don't know. I may be conservative with my numbers towards being able to accommodate all these people, which once more is a failure to the administration that's in power right now. One thing I did see that Biden supposedly have done with the big pharma today is that he put the brakes on big pharma in them charging so much money for medication that they shouldn't be charging that much money on. That's about the only good thing that I've seen him do here lately in regards towards so much suffering going on in the country. He did have a round table discussion whenever the 3 individuals got massacred down in Florida over a hate crime. He did bring that out sternly about gun reform and etc., and that the country has no place for hate. Well, I got news for you. This country today is more divided than what it's ever been, and this country today has more animosity and more hate, and people segregating people from each other because of 1,001 different reasons, more so than what I've ever seen this country being torn apart. And it's really sad because it almost makes me cry. Every time an event like this occurs with this hurricane, this is something that I have to live with, that I had foreseen that was going to happen before it ever happened. And to think that I'd gotten the response that I had gotten in the past 30 plus years towards not only people not accepting me for the gifts that the Heavenly Father had given unto me, but people attacking me on account of it. They wasn't going to honor the fact of my courageousness of being able to stand in front of the Antichrist, and before the poison arrow struck the flesh of my skin, that I would vanish or disappear. That was basically whenever God was going to call everybody home, and the rapture or the second coming of Christ was going to occur. They didn't see that as a courageous act. They seen that as an idiotic act. And because of it, They went around mocking and making fun and burying their bridges around here of those that talked bad about me and degraded me and demoralized me because of that in which what I was trying to help the general public in doing. Because the message all along has been a message of not only love, grace, pertaining to the salvation through the Lord Jesus Christ, but the message has always been a message of peace and utopia. And to think that I have been judged, not only judged, but persecuted and even prosecuted on different levels pertaining to my religion is absolutely appalling. To think that anybody would have went through all the problems that I've went through in the past 30 plus years right here in the good old USA. But then again, you can look at the history of what's went on in other groups. It didn't matter if it was black protesters. It didn't matter if it was a bunch of girls that thought that they had some sort of gifts that people thought that they was of the witches and a devil craft that basically hung them people, to the point of now today they actually promote it in our communities. Paranormal behavior, Harry Potter, exorcists, all this other stuff. They actually promote it. Tarot card readers, Ouija boards, etc. They promote it. And you wonder how come that your great nation is falling apart? You wonder how come death and destruction is almost on every level? Figure it out. Figure it out. Whenever a group of people acts like heathens, that's whenever God will turn his back upon that group of people in allowing for that group of people to be treated like a bunch of heathens. If you're going to act like a heathen, you'll be treated like a heathen. God is not going to reward people for bad behavior.
Canadalia continues. The Source with Caitlin Collins starts right now.
Tonight, straight from the source, Hurricane Idalia, just hours away from landfall, but Florida is already feeling the impact. This extremely dangerous hurricane is now a Category 2 storm and expected to intensify. One of the greatest threats is a storm surge. Perhaps it's 15 feet high in Florida's Big Bend region. Officials there say it could be a once-in-a-lifetime event. Florida's governor warning that now is the time to get out. Mandatory evacuations are underway in county after county. Thousands of National Guard members have been activated. We are monitoring it all. I'm Caitlin Collins, and this is The Source.
What Florida's governor don't realize is there's so many people in Florida that are living basically from paycheck to paycheck. And at any given moment, a $500 ordeal. It didn't matter if it was a motor blowing up or you having to go get a bunch of tires or whatever. A $500 emergency could absolutely throw them over the edge. Throw them completely over the edge to the point of bankruptcy. So whenever something like this occurs, there's all kinds of factors to put into play other than a lot of rain and a lot of wind. I mean, if you're taking care of grandma and grandma is in a wheelchair or she's bedridden and now they're ordering for you to leave, a mandatory evacuation, somebody's going to have to make preparations to be able to take care of grandma. Or if you got a bunch of dogs or a bunch of cats. Not everybody is cat and dog friendly, animal friendly. There are some shelters out there that are animal friendly, but what I'm saying is this: it puts such of a strain on the resources. And whenever I say the resources, I'm just not talking about wood. I'm just not talking about electricity pertaining to electrical grids shutting down. I'm just not talking about people's houses being destroyed or their cars being destroyed. I'm talking about all the above It puts such of a strain on all the resources. And it doesn't matter if it's a tornado, it doesn't matter if it's a flood, it doesn't matter if it's too much rain or not enough rain, or too dry or not dry enough. It puts a strain on everything. And whenever you continue to keep getting bombarded all over the world with all these strains, topple that on top of COVID, now you got a formula of a planet that is going bonkers. Now you got a formula of a group of people that could actually, sure enough, come unhinged to the point of doing something like Putin over there is doing right now with the Ukrainians, or are on the other level pertaining to North Korea, or even China against Japan, or some of these other countries that are basically sticking out their chest and daring somebody to come over the line and do something to them. It's a strain on the resources of the planet. And every time, not most every time, but every time, the people that's going to suffer the quickest and the most will be the unfortunate. Those that are already barely getting by.
Hurricane Idalia is intensifying very rapidly tonight, now packing winds of 105 miles per hour. The eye of the hurricane is now 155 miles or so southwest of Tampa and moving north. It is expected to slam into Florida as a Category 3 storm by early tomorrow. Governor Ron DeSantis is warning everywhere in the Big Bend area that they are going to see a storm surge, and now is the time to get out. Officials in Taylor County, which is southeast of Tallahassee, say that the surge there could possibly exceed 15 feet and that anyone who was caught in it would not be able to survive. Evacuations have been ordered in at least 22 counties. The outer bands of Idalia have already been hitting the Florida Keys and the southwest coast. Here's a view of the storm from space. NASA released these images from the International Space Station just as it passed over it. CNN is tracking this storm across the entire region. We have full team coverage for you tonight in this hour. CNN's Carlos Suarez is on the ground in Tampa. Our meteorologist, Chad Myers, is at the CNN Weather Center. And we have key state officials on standby to update us. We'll get to them in just a moment. Chad, I want to start with you, though, because we have seen this storm strengthening today. Where does it stand right now, and what is the time frame?
I want to say this, that there was another depression. I think it may have actually turned into a hurricane that recently just got through hitting the lower part of Brownsville, Texas, and done a whole lot of damage over in that area. Plus there was another hurricane that come up through the peninsula of California that hit in Southern California, and we still hadn't got the tally on that one yet, pertaining to all the homes and roads that got washed out and the flooding that happened. The advisories that the weather ologists are putting out to the world are helping pertaining to human catastrophes, which is a good thing. But at the same time, every time the forces of nature goes bonkers, it puts a strain on the resources. And if you do that enough times, generating from normalcy to where we're on the trajectory of going, it is not looking good, my friends, for the Homo sapiens on the planet. It is not looking good at all. And that's one of the reasons why that it says in the Bible, woe be unto the inhabitants here upon the earth, whenever you shall start to begin to see these things occurring, especially on this level. Especially on this level.
Oh, of when it's going to make landfall?
I think it makes landfall around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, so like less than 12 hours from right now, somewhere along the Big Bend area. You would know from one side would be Apalachicola, and the other side would go to Steinhatchee, and I'm sure we'll have our reporters there from Steinhatchee. That's just on the other side of the bend. The problem with this storm is where it is going. It's going into a catcher's mitt of topography here. There's no place for this water to go. This storm right now is gathering water under it, pushing water on the right side of it. If there was nothing to the north, it would be fine, but unfortunately, there is land there, and that land is going to stop the rain and stop the water that's surging to the north. Look at the eye right now. We have not seen an eye like this the entire storm, but there it is. It just popped in the past couple of hours. That means the storm is rapidly intensifying at this hour, and hurricane hunters are flying through that right now and proving that to us as the pressure is dropping rapidly. As the pressure goes down, the winds go up. It is going to make landfall likely as a Category 3 hurricane, not that far from Steinhatchee, probably to the north of Crystal River, and then even make significant wind all the way into Georgia. So now we're not going to see any storm surge from St. Pete and Tampa until the storm gets due west of you and the winds come from this direction. Because right now they're pushing offshore, pushing that water away. But that's going to change because of the circulation of the storm. 6 inches of rainfall in places that people may be evacuating to. That could cause some flash flooding here. So you have to be very careful where you're going with this storm. Just trying to stay out of the way of that surge. And that surge is going to be the most significant part of this today and into tomorrow, because there's no place for this water to go. It can't keep going. It has to stop. It's going to go up the St. Marks River. It's going to go toward Apalachicola. It's going to go to Steinhatchee. Not places that are widely populated like Tampa, but significant evacuations have to take place to get people out of there. A 15-foot storm surge, because this is so flat down here, could go 4 miles inland. If your house isn't on stilts, it's not going to make it. Okay.
We'll be keeping.
And that's exactly what happened during Katrina. Whenever Katrina come in, it caused so many rivers and creeks and stuff like that to back up. And just like the guy said, if you did not make proper preparations in making sure that you was building above the floodplain, odds are, once something like that comes on board, it's going to cause all kinds of damage towards backwater that's going to back up and continue to keep backing up. And we're talking about millions and millions of dollars worth of damage. I had never seen the type of damage that I had seen whenever I went down and worked the Hurricane Katrina damage. That was just absolutely mind-boggling to think that a storm had that kind of power. It's the forces of nature. Just like I continue to keep telling people that the Bible's very clear that in the last days Satan will come down in great wrath because he knoweth his time is short. He's basically tormenting the Homo sapiens down here on the planet, bringing misery and distress into their lives, because he knows that misery and distress is going to be coming into his life as the days are approaching. The Bible says that you will tangibly be able to see these occurrences. And it goes on to say, unless those days were shortened, that no flesh shall be saved. But for the elect's sake, that those days would be shortened. Now that's a very, very powerful statement whenever it says that no flesh shall be saved. That was put out there as an advisory, a warning, that most people either take lightly or don't believe in.
Keeping an eye on the storm surge. Obviously, you said it's what's going to be potentially the worst part of this. Thank you so much, Chad Myers. Carlos Torres is also on the ground for us. Carlos, I know that you have been talking to people all day about this. How are people there bracing for what Chad just laid out there?
We're gonna backtrack here and see what else we can come up with on some of these other news channels. real quick.
Expected. Wait in line. See the Mona Lisa. Smaller than your.
That's a commercial. American Destiny. I don't even think that's news. Here's Hamilton.
Freedom works here.
Oh, no. A lousy electrician.
Major electrical disturbances.
Significantly longer when taken.
Eating similar wallet.
Looks like everybody's on a commercial break.
Learning to.
Yep. Just going down here. Right there. See what that's going to say.
Far beyond me, but I talk to smart guys like Joe all the time now, and they tell me the same thing. These days are upon us. It's linking brains and all kinds of stuff. I'm sure human beings trying to transform themselves into gods, I'm sure that's going to work out well, right? Every other time we've tried that throughout history, that ended up working out great, didn't it? All right, we have lighten the mood next. Lighten the mood. That won't involve putting anything in your brain, but let's do this. Let's lighten your wallet first. Your wallet, it doesn't want to pay for that timeshare anymore. It's tired of those annual fees. It's tired of the special assessments. And you've convinced yourself, or you've allowed the timeshare company to convince you that you have to do it. You have no choice. Sorry, you're locked in. You signed the contract. They always give you the section of the contract you signed to when you complain. Didn't they do it? Now you got to check out page 5, paragraph E, section B, where it says that's for life. Lone Star Transfer, they've read all those sections. They've seen all these contracts. And yet, when you call Lone Star Transfer, there's a 99% chance they will get you legally and permanently out of your timeshare. That's what you call a guarantee. Family company. They've helped over 18,000 people get out forever, legally and permanently. Make a phone call. 844-310-2646. They're wonderful to deal with. Stop paying. You don't have to. Or go to LoneStarTransfer.com. All right? Get out of your timeshare. We will be back with Lighten the Mood.
I don't have a clue what that was about, other than people being hurt in cash, I guess, and needing somebody to help cushion the load.
Simon finding something.
Numerous products.
Now making a comeback in institutions. That means business, that means schools, but if the left is truly following the science, as they like to keep reminding us, they should take a look at this study, which found that wearing masks does not stop the spread of COVID, as well as a new study out of South Korea, which has evidence that wearing certain medical grade face masks may actually expose people to toxic compounds. Here with reaction. Fox News contributor Dr. Nicole Sapphire is with us. All right, so schools, now corporations.
The confusion never ends, does it? Doesn't it? One tells you to put it on, another one tells you to put it off.
Now Joe is talking about a brand new vaccine that I'm pretty certain, Dr. Nicole, he's going to tell us is safe, and that he's going to talk about this being a pandemic of the unvaccinated and shame us. And here's where I am. My advice to everybody out there is talk to your own doctor, take into account your history, your medical history and condition. I'm never listening to these people ever again in my life. Period. They were so wrong the last time. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, you have great advice there to always talk to your doctor. It should be based on individual risk, whether we're talking about mask wearing or we're talking about the updated booster that's probably going to be available this fall. But ultimately, Sean, The broad use of mask mandates have not been shown with all the data to really reduce cases over the last 3 years. You don't even have to take my word for it. Even the New York Times has reported on that. But unfortunately, you still have certain institutions who are now bringing back mask mandates because you're seeing a rise in cases, just like we've seen every August since the pandemic has begun. You have the Morris Brown College. They're saying mask mandates for 14 days. Well, this makes no sense, Sean, because any benefit happens after 20 days. And by the way, that benefit is negligible, if anything. You have Lionsgate headquarters out in LA who say if you're on the third or fifth floor of the building, you have to wear a mask. But they don't mention anything of the elevator, the lunchroom, any other floor. The on and off of the mask wearing certainly isn't going to help. So when you have these absurd mask mandates, I mean, it really continues to erode public trust. Then again, maybe less egregious, you actually have some hospital systems bringing back mask mandates. Yes, I get it, you have a higher risk population there. But what I find interesting, Sean, New York hospital systems, February 2023, they removed the mask mandates. Now some New York hospitals are bringing them back. But February 2023, when they removed those mandates, hospitalizations were twice what they are now. We need to keep COVID in reality. Yes, we're seeing a rise in cases, but hospitalizations are a third now of what they were this time last year. We need to move forward on an individual risk assessment. So those who are higher risk, those who want to wear masks, wear a mask if you'd like to. When it comes to the boosters, talk to your doctor. The masks for all, boosters for all, that should not be spoken anymore when it comes to COVID.
I thought that the one therapeutic that I saw the biggest results anecdotally in my world were monoclonal antibodies. Why did they stop producing those? And what do you think of Paxlovid? We have about 25 seconds.
Yeah, so I actually was a huge fan of the monoclonal antibodies as well. Unfortunately, they became less affected as the virus started to mutate and the variants went along. Paxlovid, I'll be honest, I have a lot of hesitations for it. I don't think it's the miracle drug, and I certainly think it's being overutilized.
You do? Okay, but couldn't they make new monoclonal antibodies specific to whatever variant we are currently having?
Yeah, they certainly can, but unfortunately this virus continues to mutate. So they really have to do a more broad antibody, but they're very expensive and they're hard for people to access.
All right, Dr. Nicole, thank you. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. Quick programming note, tomorrow night, live audience, tickets free, Hannity.com. In the meantime, say DVR so you never, ever, ever, ever miss an episode of Hannity. All right, in the meantime, let not your heart be troubled. Greg Gutfeld's next. Going to put a smile on your face. See you tomorrow.
Lawyers, including the one who, to me, looked and sounded drunk every time he spoke publicly about the presidential election in 2020 and on January 6th.
My God, that looks monstrous looking.
In those target zones to take cover or leave immediately, and that includes people in Cedar Key and Big Bend. One of the greatest threats, of course, is the storm surge. It's expected to reach once-in-a-lifetime levels for this part of Florida. CNN is live up and down the coast, including in Tampa and Steinhatchee. We'll speak live with some storm chasers who are in the heart of that bullseye, as well as officials who are warning people that time is now running out to evacuate. But first, let's get straight to Chad Myers. He's over in the CNN Weather Center with this new forecast. Chad, what is the path of Hurricane Idalia right now at this hour?
Still straight up to the north and likely just to the east of Tallahassee as it continues to the north overnight. But now the Hurricane Center will be putting out updates once per hour, not every 3 hours. So that is some excellent news for us here in the news business. Up to 110 miles per hour. 111 is a category 3, so we're right there on the cusp. And we've been seeing this eye develop for about the past 2 or 3 hours. We haven't had an eye for really most of the storm, but that eye is very indicative of what we expect this storm to do. Increase in intensity. An eye means that the storm is breathing in its eye wall, sinking air in its eye, and then all of a sudden things begin to go bump in the night. We're also seeing now the lightning pick up with this eye wall as well. There goes the storm. You ask where it goes. Believe it or not, there are hurricane warnings in Georgia. Even though the storm is going to land in Florida, it will still be a hurricane as it goes over the state line. This is going to be a quick moving storm by the time it gets there, taking all of the water that this bubble of storm now is collecting. Think about like a coffee cup. When you blow your coffee cup in the morning and you kind of try to cool it off, all of those little waves go to the far side. Well, now all of the waves are doing the same thing, but not at 2 or 3 miles per hour like your breath. At 100 miles per hour, pushing that water up to a collection point, which won't let it go any farther than that right there. There's the storm at this point in time, moving onshore, again, somewhere probably around 8 o'clock in the morning for the eye wall, but things are going to start to go downhill with winds and everything else rather quickly right now.
Yeah, things are really picking up in intensity.
Yes, they are.
The storm surge, Chad, this is a huge part of the story always with these storms. It could be up to 15 feet in some parts of Florida's west coast. Explain to the audience here, especially if you are listening to this in the state of Florida, what are the risks here?
The risk is on this part of the coast, you only really rise about 2 to 3 feet every 1,000 feet. So you're not getting a lot of topography here. So if you get a 15-foot surge, that surge could go inland for a mile at least. You get a 2-foot surge here, all of a sudden on that slope, the water just keeps going inland. A higher surge, unfortunately, begins to push it farther inland to where there are homes. There aren't many homes here in the area, and the ones that are about 5 to 10 feet above sea level. But the problem is, if you get a 15-foot surge, you are now going to be above those, and even some of those above those that are on stilts. One more thing that's going on tonight, Abby, king tide. This is a super moon tonight. That means that the moon is 18,000 miles, it didn't happen immediately, 18,000 miles closer than normal. That means there's more suction, there's more gravity from the moon, and so that's going to make the tide even 1 foot higher than it should be on a normal tide day.
All right, Chad, you're going to be standing by for us throughout this process. I want to go next, though, to CNN's own John Berman, who's over in Steinhatchee on Florida's Big Bend for us. So, John, where is this storm expected to hit in the coming hours? You're right where we could be seeing that landfall.
Yeah, unfortunately here. I mean, not far from here. And if the eye wall doesn't cross here exactly, this is still the area where they are expecting 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. About 45 minutes south of here, Cedar Key, the mayor told his people that they simply can't be helped if they stay. Get out. This could be unsurvivable. Let me explain why. So I'm on a deck right now at a marina, the Sea Hag Marina, which is normally a bustling place. I can see the bar right here, where at this time of night it would normally be filled with people. Hurricane Hermine in 2016 was a Category 1. It had a storm surge of 6 feet. When that came in here, and that did come in here, that filled the water up to about here on this deck where I am right now. A storm surge of 6 feet went up to about here. So imagine what 10 feet would be, and then 15 feet. Well over my head, twice as high as I am right now. That's what it could be like here in 8 hours, which is why people have been told to leave. Sheriff deputies have been going door to door to houses here to get people to go. As Chad was saying, there's not a ton of people who live here. It's not a very populated area, only a population of 500 to 1,000 people, depending on the time of the year. And many people have left, but a few haven't. The people who own the Sea Hag Marina, where I am right now, they've chosen to stay. Their house is a few feet higher in elevation. They think they can ride it out. They just don't feel safe leaving this behind, but they know they're taking a risk, and they're scared. They're scared because they lived through Hermine at 6 feet of storm surge, and they're nervous what 15 feet could do, Abby.
Yeah, I mean, this is not an area that is particularly used to these kinds of storms. So what has the Sheriff's Department been telling you are their biggest concerns for this area in the coming hours, and perhaps for those few people who are deciding to stay behind?
Well, they don't want anyone to stay. Their concern is the surge, and they're making clear, as they do in hurricanes in low-lying areas, that after a certain point, they will not be able to help. once the winds get higher than 40 miles per hour, most of the time law enforcement, they have to stay inside for their own safety. They can't come and help you. And that's with the winds. With the storm surge, if the storm surge inundates this area and goes in, as Chad was saying, I'm 500 yards maybe from the Gulf of Mexico here. But if you go inland more, as Chad was saying, it's flat for miles and miles and miles. If this is covered with water, they're going to have to be able to do water rescues if they can in some areas that they can't reach. And it's a very small police department. They were telling us normally it's only a handful of sheriff deputies who are on duty in this county ever normally at one time. They actually had to call in the state police to help them because there are so few of them there to monitor it. But they just want people to know, if you are still here now, you are on your own, Abby.
Yeah, there's only so much they can do once the storm comes through. John Berman, thank you very much. I want to go now to CNN's Carlos Suarez. He's live in Tampa for us. So Carlos, what are the conditions like where you are there on the ground?
Well, Abby, we are in for a wet and windy night here in
correct. So it'll be interesting to see how the party address this and what just eventually does.
Glenn, there's definitely reason for Mark Meadows' lawyers to be helpful. I mean, here's a judge who's raising that.
I love you, Grandma.
And in 1921, Paul sees a business opportunity in California. California oil output was equal to that of Oklahoma. It was massive. Of course, Paul had grown up seeing oil derricks going up all around him.
is the concern moving forward over the next 12 to 24 hours is that we're going.
I think Trump controls Meadows at this point. Meadows has an excellent, very experienced lawyer who's making.
Oh, God.
I was born, but thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this conversation on my way to Mississippi for the Emmett Till event for the press.
There's no way you get from a senator's $75,000 a year salary to $1.5 million estate. Joe responds, 1.1 million. I said,
oh my God.
Garrison's approach to ending slavery, which was moral persuasion, moral suasionism. Garrison was a genuine radical, believed in immediatism, which means ending slavery now, not waiting for some gradual plan over decades or generations.
That was recorded 5 years ago.
A celebration in honor of her tremendous legacy. She was an influential educator, a civil rights leader, and an activist. She championed African American women's rights, suffrage rights, and education. She truly is an example of the very best of what we have to offer as Floridians, and a source of such tremendous pride for all of us who come here to see the great leaders of our country and of our state. I also want to say what a privilege it is to be here with this.
I don't know what that is neither.
System that's being used. And the F-59 pilots, they're going to be flying this thing without a forward-facing window, which is really off.
Well, folks, it looks like it's just about time to end this particular recording.
Trial for one defendant.
Especially whenever 85% of the news is based around Trump.
They're ready to stand by. And you mentioned that teams are going to be going around tomorrow to make sure that those evacuation orders are being heeded. Do you have a sense tonight of what percentage of the folks that are under mandatory orders have actually already followed those orders?
Actually, our shelters are being filled. We probably have over 1,000 people that's in the shelters within the city of Tampa. I really don't have that number, but a lot of people actually is listening to the authorities and evacuating, because we don't want the same thing that happened last year with Hurricane Ian, as far as the surge coming in afterwards and taking them other lives.
All right, Chief Barbara Tripp, thank you very much.
Good luck to all of us. Good luck to all of us, and shalom.